You're on the Spot with Mande Wilkes.
Welcome to On the Spot. I'm Mande Wilkes. Thank you for turning me on this morning. Well, you know, we talk a lot on this show about corruption and corruption in politics especially. But today we're going to talk a little bit about what I'm calling boys clubs vis-a-vis Penn State and now the Citadel right here in South Carolina, and all of the corruption and scandal and cover-up that's going on in these boys clubs and how it relates to South Carolina politics and Myrtle Beach politics right here at home. When we come back, we're going to talk about boys clubs and corruption. Stay right there. I will be right back. Welcome back. Like I said, this week we're moving on from just politics and just political corruption to cultural corruption and how it all relates back to politics. Well, for almost 2 weeks now, we've heard nothing but Joe Paterno, Penn State, McQueary, sex cover-ups, sex allegations, molestation, bad stuff. It all comes back to corruption, cover-up, and scandal. Well, just a few days ago, news broke that right here in South Carolina, the Citadel has been accused and actually has admitted now that it itself covered up a sex scandal right there at the Citadel. Now, this is especially ironic. Before we get into the details of the case, this is especially ironic considering that the Citadel prides itself on honor. I mean, that's the whole point of the Citadel, an honorable institution, right? Well, that's not the case. Now, the details of the case, it's a lot. I'm just going to give you a brief summary in case you haven't had time to go through it all. Basically, in 2007, the Citadel had an allegation come against one of its former cadets who was coaching at a summer camp that the Citadel was putting on. The Citadel at that point had already settled an almost $4 million lawsuit for sex allegations that had already arisen because of that same summer camp. The summer camp right now is no longer been going on. It's closed because of all these allegations. Now, the problem is, in 2007, what did the Citadel administration do? Did they report the allegations to the police? No. They investigated, which is usually code word for do nothing, hide it, cover it up. Interestingly, the Citadel's own attorney interviewed the accuser, and the attorney found the accuser to be, quote unquote, credible and believable. And even then, the Citadel administration did nothing. They still didn't go to the police. Now, like I said, that was in 2007. So why are we talking about this now? Why is all this coming to light now? Well, because just last month, the person who's accused of these sex crimes against these summer camp little boys at the Citadel, his name is Louis Skip Reville. He was arrested last month on charges of separate sex crimes against children, and he's admitted to at least 3 of those crimes at this point. Now, that happened, the first allegations at the Citadel happened in 2007. Just between then and now, in the 4-year interim, who knows how many other kids have been molested or hurt or, you know, defiled by what looks to be a pedophile. I mean, he has already admitted it, so you can't even say alleged pedophile anymore. I mean, you know, it is what it is, and it gets worse as it goes along. So now the Citadel has issued an apology, well, thanks a lot, an apology that for 4 years after it had reason to believe the accuser, the Citadel administration and staff and supposedly honorable people just let this supposed pedophile run free in the Charleston community, run free in the South Carolina community. The person accused, Mr. Reville, has been coaching and being around kids and being involved in the Charleston community just like he had all those years. That's why there are these victims to come forward now, and that's why we're talking about this right now. So again, this maybe is even worse than the Penn State Joe Paterno scandal, because what's happened here is a cover-up from a college, from a military college, an institution really not just of Charleston or of South Carolina, but of America itself. I mean, it's one of the oldest institutions in the country, and I think the oldest military institution in the country. And there's no honor there. I mean, I think you're supposed to get kicked out of the Citadel at this point if you lie or if you cheat or if you steal, and I think that's actually at the Citadel itself on a statue. But that's why right now on the show, I'm calling for the Citadel president to resign. He's paid with tax dollars, and this is just not okay. This cover-up, this scandal is just not okay, because in the 4-year interim, since the Citadel and the Citadel president and the Citadel administration had reason to believe this accuser against its summer camp and former cadet, they did nothing. They allowed this to happen in the community that the Citadel says they care about. But that's enough. I'm going on, and we got to get back to the point of how this all relates to politics. Basically, boys' clubs. You had a boys' club in Penn State covering up, creating a scandal, crony corruption. Then it happened in the Citadel around the same time. Now that's all coming to light. Well, guess what else is coming to light? Another boys' club right here in South Carolina and right here in Myrtle Beach. The Sun News reported this week, David Wren, star investigative reporter. You know you're on my radar, David Wren. The Sun News reported this week about gifts and freebies being given to a bunch of area politicians and elected officials. Now, what we're talking about is free theater tickets, free sporting event tickets, meals, hotels, airfare, what have you. The biggest donor, of course, is the Myrtle Beach Mafia, aka the Myrtle Beach Area Chamber of Commerce. Now, the 3 biggest beneficiaries, the 3 biggest gift recipients, this is interesting. Mayor John Rhodes, Myrtle Beach Mayor John Rhodes, received almost $12,000 in freebies, including dinners and the other things I mentioned, theater tickets, that kind of thing. Randall Wallace, a Myrtle Beach City Councilman, received almost $5,000 in freebies. And State Rep Thad Vyers received the most of any area politician in freebies, almost $15,000. Now, these gifts and freebies are legal, but they aren't ethical, because guess what? Quid pro quo. When these guys are getting something for free, whether it's from businesses, from the Chamber of Commerce, from people, especially from businesses and especially from the Chamber of Commerce, you better believe that there's the expectancy of, come on, what's in it for me? People don't, you've heard it since you were 5. I've heard it since I was 5. Nothing's for free. So it's no wonder we have so much corruption and scandal here. We've got all these, and I just named the top 3. I mean, there's like 15 more. It was a total of almost $50,000 that has been given to Grand Strand area legislators and elected officials by businesses and the Myrtle Beach Area Chamber of Commerce. Now, interestingly, 2 of the biggest 3 gift recipients, like I said, State Rep Thad Vyers and Myrtle Beach City Councilman Randall Wallace, are running for Congress. And guess what? At a gathering last week in Florence, I had the pleasure of listening to Vyers and Wallace. Both of them basically were talking about why they should be the next congressman for our area. The gist of both of their little speeches was basically that they would go in and crash the club and not be part of the good old boys club in Washington. Now, that's kind of hard to believe, you know. It's hard to believe that they would fight crony capitalism in D.C. because guess what? They're part of that. They're part of that here. They're part of what's going on here. You know, they haven't even gotten to Washington yet, and they're about as corrupt as you can be already. So imagine what would happen if, in fact, they are elected to Congress. Can you imagine how comfortable they're going to be with the crony capitalism there? Yeah, it's true. It was a real shocker for me to hear them talk about that, and then a few days later read about all the gifts and freebies and favors that they're getting. So it's a boys club. Let's kind of connect the dots, bring it back full circle. You have Penn State, you have the Citadel, you have these local elected officials and legislative delegates getting freebies, crony capitalism, corruption, scandal, cover-up. There's no reason we hear so much of that going on in politics. It's a boys club. Now, we're just talking about Congress. Speaking of Congress, since you got Thad Vyers and Randall Wallace getting all these freebies and now running for Congress to get even more freebies, probably. It's guys like that that make Congress so despised and so despicable and so unpopular. And when I come back, I'm going to show you just how despised Congress is. And here's a hint. It might be that Cuba's Fidel Castro is more popular than Congress. I'll be right back. Welcome back. Like I said, Congress is very, very unpopular, and it's probably because what we just talked about, guys like Randall Wallace, the Advisors running for Congress and accepting freebies from businesses and the Myrtle Beach Chamber of Commerce, aka the Myrtle Beach Mafia, all over town. Now, how unpopular is Congress? And how much more unpopular can they get? Well, it turns out not much more, because they're about as unpopular as you can get. Take a look at this handy chart I have here. This chart shows how unpopular Congress is compared to other really unpopular things. Now, at the end of the chart here is Fidel Castro at 5% popularity. Beside that is Congress at 9% popularity. Now, what else is on this chart for being unpopular? Congress is behind Hugo Chavez, the U.S. going communist, Paris Hilton. Paris Hilton is more popular than Congress, but that's not really a surprise. U.S. going communist kind of surprised me. I didn't know that people would rather the U.S. go communist at a higher rate than people who like Congress. The BP during the oil spill had a higher popularity rating than Congress does right now. Banks have a higher popularity than Congress does now. Nixon during Watergate was more popular than Congress is right now. Lawyers are more popular than Congress is right now. The airline industry is more popular than Congress is right now. And believe it or not, the IRS is the most popular of this chart of unpopular things. The IRS is way up here at 40% popularity, and Congress is down there at 5% popularity. So Congress is not a popular place to be, and again, it's because of what we were talking about in the previous segment. It's a boys' club. It's corruption, it's scandal, crony capitalism. That's what's going on. It's really, really unpopular. I don't know who would want to be there. I don't know who would want to go there, but I do know this. We're about to elect a new congressperson right here in this area, in South Carolina's newly emerged 7th District. We have to make sure that they're not going to make Congress even more unpopular than they are, because soon, if Congress gets any more unpopular, we're going to be off the charts. All right, I'll be right back and talk about why it's not just the boys who can get down and dirty with the corrupt boys club. See you in just a minute. Like I said in the last segment, it's not just the boys who can get down and dirty with the corrupt boys club. Let's talk about our governor, Nikki Haley. Well, you know you're doing something wrong when President Obama approves and defends what you're doing. Now, our governor has caused South Carolina DHEC to be sued by the South Carolina Attorney General. What's going on? How'd this happen? Well, there's a port in Savannah, Georgia, and Nikki Haley, Governor Nikki Haley, has approved a $600 million dredging of this port in Georgia. South Carolina taxpayers are going to pay for the widening of a port in Georgia. The jobs are going to go to Georgia. Again, South Carolina is going to pay for this huge, expensive boondoggle that's going to benefit Georgia. Now, Governor Haley did have the right position on this issue before she recklessly flip-flopped. So what caused her to flip-flop? Well, reports allege that she received financial and political consideration from huge donors in Georgia who had interest in having this Savannah port widened. Now, Governor Haley flip-flopped, like I said. Before she even ran for governor last year, she was really against this Georgia thing. She said, you know, Georgia's had, I think her quote was, Georgia's had its way with us for too long. And now all of a sudden, she's pressuring DHEC to approve this $600 million financial and environmental boondoggle that hurts South Carolina and helps Georgia. Like I said, she did it because of a fundraising blitz that happened in Georgia. They put pressure on her. Her fundraisers put pressure on her, and she put pressure on DHEC. DHEC approved it, and now the South Carolina Attorney General, Alan Wilson, has to defend it. He's agreed to defend the commission against Haley and Haley's DHEC board of directors that she appointed and that she pressured into this. This is insane. And now it gets more insane because Haley's chief of staff, Tim Pearson, has allegedly been improperly and maybe illegally pressuring Attorney General Wilson not to pursue the case, even though he by law has to pursue the case and has to take this case against DHEC and by extension against Nikki Haley and her administration. This is a huge, huge boondoggle, huge waste of money, and even more maybe than the waste of money is the waste of opportunity for South Carolina. And why are we even talking about this? Because of the boys club. Now I know Nikki Haley isn't a boy, but I've often said she's supposed to be a Tea Party diva. That's what she ran on, but she's become a good old boy in a skirt. This is one of the most egregious examples of crony capitalism this state has seen in a long, long time. And this is what I'm talking about with boys clubs. Corruption, crony capitalism, scandals, cover-up. It's crazy, and it has to stop. When I come back, we'll be talking about why you keep having to pay higher and higher property taxes. Meanwhile, the schools keep going lower and lower. I'll be right back. Welcome back. Again, we're talking property taxes. You'll notice that for about 2 weeks now, I've been hammering Horry County about property taxes. Well, that's because every time I think we can move on, you guys keep emailing me your horror stories about property taxes that you're going through. So I just can't let it go. Now, before I get to some of those letters, let's connect the dots a little bit between public schools and property taxes. This year, the South Carolina government will spend well over $12,000 a year to supposedly educate students. That's a record-breaking amount. Which maybe wouldn't be so hard to swallow if performance went up the way that cost went up. But that's not the case, because year after year, you keep paying higher and higher taxes, higher and higher property taxes to fund public schools, and every year the public schools go lower and lower. Now, whether we're talking SAT scores, ACT scores, college acceptance rates, scholarship rates, any other metric you can think of, South Carolina is about as low as you can go. It's like a game of limbo. How low can you go? The latest metric to be reported, and what we really want to talk about today, is the graduation rates. Of course, South Carolina ranks dead next to last, so 49 out of 50. Despite all the money you're paying in property taxes, schools keep getting worse. Part of the problem, and this isn't reported nearly as often as it should be, part of the problem is that only half of every one of your property tax dollars actually gets into the classroom. The rest goes, guess where? To educrats, which is what I call bureaucrats and administrators in schools who leech off of your property tax dollars. It's no wonder that schools get worse as property taxes get higher. So now that we've connected the dots a little bit between the bad performance of public schools and the way increasing property taxes, let's get to some of you guys' thoughts on the matter. I've got a few letters here. You guys can send me letters at mandewilkes.com or m@mandewilkes.com. All right, here's one letter. Dear Mandy, well, it doesn't really say dear, but let's pretend. Dear Mandy, thank you for addressing property taxes on your show. That's an excellent point you made about property taxes depressing the real estate market. I had never considered this angle before, but I've thought about it, and I believe you are correct. Property taxes discourage the purchase of property, and until the government does away completely with property taxes, the market is going to remain in a slump. And that's from Jeremy in Florence. Thank you, Jeremy. Second one, Dear Mandy. Again, doesn't really say dear, but we're pretend. I've been wanting to hear, Dear Mandy, I've been wanting to hear from Horry County for nearly a year about the property tax dispute that I filed almost a year ago. Nobody from the assessor's office will return my call. Nobody from the auditor's office is even picking up the phone anymore when I call. Now my property taxes are due again, and I haven't even heard back from the county about last year's tax bill. Mandy, this would not be acceptable from any business, so why is it okay that the government doesn't respond to people's disputes, especially when those people pay their salaries? You're right, Janet from Conway. This would not be acceptable from any business. Nobody would stand for it, and we shouldn't stand for it either just because it's coming from the government. All right, this comes from Richard from Socastee. Dear Mandy, I own real estate all over Horry County. As such, I pay an astronomical amount in property taxes every single year. I can't stand the thought of my hard-earned money going down the drain to fund the failing public school system. The worst part of it is that on top of all the property taxes I already pay, I have to spend thousands more to send my kids to private school so they can actually get a real education. And again, that's from Richard in Soxty. I couldn't agree more, Richard. I'm really, 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 really upset that the South Carolina legislature again this year refused to even consider a parental choice / school voucher bill that would address the exact problem you're talking about. All right, so now that we've connected the dots a little bit between property taxes and the failing public schools, I'll be right back with my Government Gone Wild segment. Government Gone Wild. Last week, Faith, my co-host, debuted this segment, Government Gone Wild. You guys loved it. What I've got here, I've got one thing from Faith this week, and the other thing is from a reader. Janet from Myrtle Beach sent me this gem about the Obama administration, surprise, surprise, now this really is a surprise, no kidding, suing a trucking company in Arkansas for firing a driver who was an alcoholic and who admitted to being an alcoholic. So now the Obama administration is suing this trucking company for doing what I think all of us and all of you would agree is the right, responsible thing by not letting an alcoholic, a self-admitted alcoholic, drive. Under the Americans with Disabilities Act, the ADA, Obama says this trucking company violated the law because, guess what? Obama says that alcoholism is a disability. Now, I don't know if alcoholism is a disability or not. That's semantics. Who knows? What I do know is that I would rather somebody not be on the road who is an admitted alcoholic, somebody not be getting paid to drive when they admit that they're an alcoholic, than worry about if it violates the Americans with Disabilities Act. Apparently, Obama and his administration would rather prioritize the Americans with Disabilities Act and keep drunks on the road. I don't get it. This really, really, really is government gone wild. Thank you, Janet from Myrtle Beach, for sending that in. If you have a good government gone wild, send it to mandewilkes.com. And if it is government gone wild enough, I will talk about it. The next thing comes from co-host Faith, who found out that if you're lying about your weight on Match.com or eHarmony.com or any of those fun dating sites, the Department of Justice might want to prosecute you. This comes from an act that Congress made a few years ago to make it where people have to follow and adhere to the terms of use that websites set up. So if eHarmony has it set up that you can't lie about your weight or your looks or your job or what have you, then if you lie about that, if you say I'm 150 pounds when you're 160 pounds, the Department of Justice actually is interested in coming after you. No kidding. I can't believe it either. This is according to CNED. You can go Google it if you want more information. But those single people out there on Match.com and eHarmony.com, you better not lie about your weight. The Department of Justice might come after you. And that's what I mean when I say the government has gone wild. All right, I will be right back to talk about what's got me hot and bothered today. Welcome back. I'm hot and I'm bothered, and it's not just because you decided to turn me on in your living room this morning. Today I'm hot for you guys, viewers who keep me on my toes by analyzing and fact-checking and apparently rewinding and slow-moing your way through the show. Now, there's Dan from Myrtle Beach, who at the end of a very long and heavily researched email asked me, quote, how in the world I can be wrong about so many things. And then there's Dwayne from Columbia, who wrote me an email schooling me about why property taxes aren't actually linked to public schools. Dwayne, I'm not buying it, but nice try. A for effort. And because of that, I'm sending you a lipstick kiss copy of my whistleblowing political tell-all, Crashing the Club. Email me your address, and I'll get that to you. And of course, I can't forget to mention the rascals out there who made last week's On the Spot show, go kind of viral on YouTube. In case you haven't heard, and I'm quite sure you probably have, a handful of viewers thought that I had what we might euphemistically refer to as a basic instinct moment. For those of you itching to check it out for yourself, let me save you some time. The jury is in, and the verdict was that there was no show and tell. No Janet Jackson moment, no basic instinct moment. But you guys sure do pay attention to detail, and it keeps me on my toes. And by the way, if you don't know what a basic instinct moment is, that is worth your time. Go Google that. Anyway, keep keeping me on my toes at mandewilkes.com. Now, What I'm bothered by this week is pizza, which according to Congress is a vegetable. Pizza's a veggie, you know, because of the tomato sauce. Tomato's a vegetable, so pizza's a vegetable. That's Congress's reasoning. Yep, that's what Congress said when it rejected U.S. Department of Agriculture recommendations to make school lunches healthier. Now, this is what I mean when I say that Republicans talk a lot about family values. Meanwhile, their policies totally undermine families themselves. What in the world are we doing going against recommendations to make school lunches healthier? I don't understand this. Republicans, you say you value families, well, start valuing the kids in those families and make school lunches healthier. And please, for the love, don't call pizza a vegetable, even if it does have tomato sauce on it. All right, and because I am even super bothered today, super hot today, I've got one more thing that's making me hot. Texas representative in Congress and GOP presidential nominee Ron Paul. Ron Paul is pretty much the godfather of the Tea Party. And guess what? He's leading in polls among independents. Why is that important? Because it might be independents that is going to determine next year's presidential election and a lot of other congressional, local, state level elections. People are getting tired of the two-party system, and people understand we need a third-party alternative. Now, Ron Paul is running for president as a Republican, but he is not your typical Republican. He's a libertarian, and he gets it, and that's why he's leading among independents. Everybody kind of took him for a joke last time around in 2008. He had a lot of steam, but he didn't get much traction among you know, most people. Now he's picking up that traction. He may actually have a shot at the Republican nomination. I never thought I would say that Ron Paul might actually have a chance to challenge Obama, but the polls show, you know, the numbers don't lie. Paul is climbing in the polls. People are tired of the two-party system. People are tired of this, you know, fighting between left and right when there's really not much difference between left and right. And Ron Paul, he's the man, and I'm happy about it, and I'm happy that independents are getting behind him because, like I said, independents are the ones that probably going to determine next year's election. All right, that's it for this week's show. Next week, same time, same place. Keep turning me on, and I'll keep turning you on. Till then, I'm at mandewilkes.com.